Speaking of I guess Peter Thiel came out kind of against Bitcoin recently, but let's talk about comps. Two sort of concepts in the smart or sort of technology realm I want to go through is both Palantir and fusion centers. So let's start with Palantir. What should people know about Palantir?
People should know everything about Palantir. Truly one of the most actually existing evil companies in the world today. And, you bring up Peter Thiel, right? And he's, Palantir is one of Peter Thiel's babies, as is, the sister company of Palantir is called Anduril Industries, which is basically for ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. Anduril Industries is to them what Palantir is to the CIA and police departments, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, in a nutshell, Palantir, it is a big data crunching factory. I mean, they do what they call social network analysis, which is this idea that they aggregate a lot of data from across multiple different kind of siloed data pools, and then use all of that to create these really detailed network analyses of people's relationships, of who they know, who their friends are, what addresses and vehicles and property is related to them, right? Mm-hmm. It all came out of this they were originally had a lot of funding from the CIA to do this kind of stuff in order to track terror cells in the Middle East, right? But they quickly found out that it was a lot more lucrative to sell that software and service to police departments, because there's a lot more police departments. There's only one CIA, mm-hmm. And there's a lot more money. And so there's a bigger market there. And so it really does play into what I see in my book is this transition, right? We know about the militarization of the police, where the police are out there looking like, an occupying army. But I think Palantir really represents this transition towards an intelligentization of the police, where the police start acting more like intelligence officers or like intelligence agencies, where when Palantir comes in, to the police, it really starts to change how the police do their work, where things like data collection becomes a much more central part of even a beat cop, right? They're filling out these field cards or these interaction cards every time they stop someone on the street, right? They fill out a card, providing information. Who is this person? What happened? What was the stop? And all of that information is then digitized, right? And that's fed into this big kind of silo of data that Palantir has access to and makes sense of and creates interfaces for the police to access. So it really is kind of this way of, it falls into this trend that I have kind of identified in my work of data as capital, right? Mm-hmm. The data is a core part of capital, or a core form of capital now, in the economy and society. And a lot of institutions that did not see capitalizing on data as a core part of their business or their operations are now transitioning towards being no, data is the name of the game. And police are falling in line with that. And I'll quickly give a shout out to the work of Sarah Brain, who's a sociologist who has done, to my knowledge, the only ethnography of Palantir, but she did a really in-depth ethnography of the LAPD. But the LAPD was one of the first major police departments in the country that had these partnerships with Palantir. So a lot of what we know about how Palantir operates in police departments, or at least a lot of what I know about it, comes from Sarah Brain's sociological work, because a lot of this is very secretive and very hard to access.
I mean, I think anybody who saw the type of, or has seen the type of mendacity police can exhibit, trusting them with spy powers is, I mean, utterly horrifying. Fusion centers.
It's a democratization of the NSA, right? It's it's an NSA in every city.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in a future that I imagine we're going to see a lot more protests. I mean, it's clear we're just going to have another generation of people that were entirely spied upon. Fusion centers, tell us about those.
Yeah, fusion centers are interesting because the fusion centers are a Department of Homeland Security initiative, which also came out of, like so much of this stuff did, kind of post 9/11, global war on terror. Um, but fusion centers are in a lot of ways something that Palantir, very complementary, or the kind of public version of Palantir's privatization of this, where a DHS fusion center is, yeah, just it is doing what it says. Data fusion is the bringing together of lots of different data from lots of different silos. So, data that would not normally be in relationship with each other or talk to each other or be analyzed together. Fusion centers have the power of bringing all of that data together. So data from, social services and the DMV, all of these different predominantly government departments and agencies that oftentimes do not talk to each other. The DHS is like, no, we need all of this information to talk to each other, because from the fusion of this data, we can find new insights. We can find more stuff about more people. We can, predict XYZ, whatever they say. But so now there's these like networks of fusion centers across the US. And police cannot just access it whenever they want, but they can kind of apply to access data from the fusion center and so on. And reading studies of these fusion centers from other social scientists, they've been, people that work in them have called them a one-stop shop. It's the idea that rather than having to track down all of this data from all these different sources, you just go to the fusion center, and it's the Amazon of spying, right? You just get whatever you want from the fusion center.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of all the sort of boasting I heard like growing up about how bad it was behind the Iron Curtain and the amount of spying in Eastern Europe and stuff like that, and yeah.